I know what everyone thinks when they hear the headline. I flirted with my boss to get a promotion. My husband made us both jobless. Most people don't even need the rest. They've already decided who I am. Lazy, manipulative, a little too comfortable crossing lines. And honestly, if I were hearing this as someone else's story, I'd probably roll my eyes too. But it's different when you're the one sitting in the ruins, looking around and trying to figure out exactly which brick you pulled out first. So let me say this clearly before anything else. No, I didn't run off with my boss. No, we never crossed the line that you're thinking about. No, there were no hotel rooms, no secret trips, no kiss in the parking lot under the rain. What I did was worse in some ways. I learned how far I could go without technically doing anything, and I pushed every inch of that line. I called it strategy. I called it survival. I called it how things work in the real world. My husband called it something else. And instead of quietly resenting me, he walked into my office one morning with a folder and a straight face and pulled the fire alarm on both of our lives. So if you want an epic story, here it is. Not the polished version you'd tell at brunch, not the two-sentence drama people drop in comment sections. The full, ugly, stretched-out story, the way it actually felt living it. I didn't wake up one day and think, today I will risk my marriage for a job title. It started much slower, much more boring. 6 years at the same company, 6 years of being essential but never quite promotable. I was the person everyone sent their drafts to at the last minute. Can you just look over this presentation? Can you fix the numbers in this chart? Can you send that file to the director? You explain it better. I trained new hires. I guided interns. I created templates other people slapped their names on. I knew the systems better than the managers above me. And what did I get? A pat on the shoulder, a couldn't do it without you. Maybe a coffee voucher at the end of the year if HR was feeling generous. Meanwhile, people who were louder, more charming, or just connected in ways I wasn't kept jumping over me. One guy actually asked me to walk him through the report I wrote so he could feel confident presenting it. He mispronounced half the terminology in front of senior leadership and still got invited to the strategy dinner afterward. I got thanked in an email. At the bottom, that dinner, the one I wasn't invited to, was the first time I realized charm was a currency in that building. Competence kept the lights on. Charm decided who got the corner office. And then there was my boss, Victor. The kind of person companies love. Confident, quick with a joke, always ready with a story to fill a silence in meetings. He knew how to make the director laugh, how to soften bad news, how to turn feedback into a performance. He also knew exactly how invisible I was. "Anna, you're a lifesaver," he'd say, after I stayed late fixing something he messed up. "Anna, you're the backbone of this department. Anna, don't ever leave me. I'd be lost without you." All said with that lazy smile that never changed anything on my payslip. I wasn't stupid. I knew how this looked. I was the reliable one, the helper, the quiet engine in the back that kept everything moving while other people sat at the front of the train waving. After 6 years, that does something to you. It makes you start thinking, maybe playing nice isn't working. Maybe I need to play the game the way everyone else already is. It was a Tuesday, late. Most people had gone home. The office lights were in that half-dim state where only the emergency strips and a few glowing screens made everything look softer. I was still there, finishing yet another urgent update to a report Victor had promised to send days ago. He leaned against the conference table watching me. "You know we're restructuring next quarter," he said. I didn't even look up. "I heard something about it," I said. "Another round of reshuffling." He smiled. "Or an opportunity," he replied, "for the people who actually keep this place from falling apart." My hands paused over the keyboard. "What kind of opportunity?" I asked. "You already do half of what a junior manager does," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You coordinate, you train, you fix. I'm thinking it's time to formalize that. Get you a title that matches what you actually do. I felt something light up inside my chest. Are you serious? I asked, trying not to sound too hopeful. Of course I'm serious, he said. I've been saying for years you're underused at this level. No, he hadn't. Not in any way that mattered. But those words, underused, junior manager, formalize, were like water after a dry season. I'd be interested, I said. Obviously. He nodded slowly, studying my face. Good, he said. We should talk more about it. Not here, somewhere without constant interruptions. He paused. Maybe over dinner, he added, light, casual. Easier to go through everything without being pulled into 3 other crises. He said it like a suggestion about coffee, like a normal thing for a boss to say. I laughed. Is that how promotions work now? I joked. Dinner with the boss? He raised an eyebrow. Promotions work, however. People with influence decide they work, he said. I'm offering you time and attention. You can decide what you do with it. There it was. Not a direct line crossed, just the outline of one, right in front of me. When I went home that night, I told my husband, Matt, that Victor had mentioned a possible promotion. I did not tell him about dinner, because I knew exactly how that conversation would go. Why dinner? What's wrong with talking at the office? I don't like where this is going. And honestly, I didn't want to hear it. We were already stressed about money. Matt's company had just cut staff. He was working longer hours, coming home drained, talking in terms like runway and burn rate and worst-case scenario. The last thing I wanted was to add jealous husband versus possibly lecherous boss to the list. So I decided to manage it myself. Just one dinner, one conversation. I'd keep it light, keep it about work, set a boundary if I needed to. I told myself, I can take care of this. I can handle attention without falling into something I don't want. Looking back, that might be the most arrogant thought I've ever had. It didn't start with dinner. It started with messages. At first, it was practical. Victor, can you send the updated deck? Need it for tomorrow's call. Me, just emailed it. Then it shifted. Victor, thank you. You always save me when I mess up the numbers. Me, that's why you keep me around. That wink emoji, that tiny, ridiculous symbol, is probably the first real step over the invisible line. Then came more. Victor, you know you're the smartest person in this room, right? Me, not saying you're wrong. Victor, if the world were fair, you'd be running this department and I'd be your assistant. I laughed out loud when I read that, partly because it was flattering, partly because there was a bitter ring of truth in it. Me, if the world were fair, my title wouldn't still say specialist after 6 years. Victor, that can change, with the right support. The right support. I knew what he meant. I also knew what I wanted. So I told myself I was just letting him talk. I wasn't promising anything. I wasn't saying yes to anything concrete. I was just keeping the door open. That's what I called it. Keeping the door open. If someone had recorded my internal monologue, they would have heard how I justified everything. It's just words. If I shut down every slightly suggestive comment, I'll be labeled difficult. Men do this stuff all the time and still climb. Why should I play pure and get nowhere? I started answering his late messages a bit faster, smiling at my phone when I should have been sleeping, choosing my work outfits with an extra 2 minutes of thought on the days I knew we'd be in the same room. Not costumes, nothing extreme, just a fitted dress instead of a baggy sweater, a colour I knew he'd commented on before. If you're looking for a moment where I lost control, you won't find it. I never felt out of control. I felt calculated, smart, like I was finally using all the levers available to me instead of pretending the only thing that mattered was my keyboard. And yet, at the exact same time, if you'd asked me point blank, Are you using your boss's attention as a tool? I would have said, no, I'm just being myself. If he takes it the wrong way, that's his problem. Doublethink at its finest. Whenever Victor's messages crossed from flattering into almost romantic, I deleted them. From my phone. Not from the cloud, not from my tablet, just from the one device I assumed anyone might pick up one day and scroll through. If you want to know whether I knew what I was doing was wrong, that's your answer. I didn't feel guilty enough to stop, only guilty enough to clean. The night everything cracked open started with a broken internet connection. Matt was on another late call, eyes glued to his laptop, frustration in every tense line of his shoulders. Our router had been acting up for days. My tablet wouldn't sync properly. Messages were delayed, notifications coming in clumps. I'll fix it after this call, he muttered, pointing at the tablet. Leave it on the table. It's probably a backup issue. I dropped it there without thinking. It was only later, when he called my name from the living room, in that low, flat voice, that I realized what backup issue really meant. Anna. I walked in, wiping my hands on a towel. He was sitting on the couch, tablet in his hands, face pale and tight. What's wrong? I asked. He didn't answer. He turned the tablet around. The message thread with Victor stared up at me. Not the cleaned version. The whole thing. All the, you should have been mine in another life. All the, wear that dress again. All the, your husband doesn't realize what he has. And all of my replies. Not exactly innocent. You're terrible. Stop, you'll get me in trouble. If my salary matched your compliments, I'd be running this place. He scrolled. I watched my mistakes move under his finger like a slow slideshow. When were you going to tell me about this? He asked quietly. My throat went dry. It's not. If you say it's not what it looks like, he said, I will laugh. Right now, in a very unpleasant way. Because I have eyes. I swallowed. He's just like that, I said. He makes comments. He flirts with everyone. I brush it off. Brush it off? Matt repeated. These replies. He tapped the screen. This looks like you polishing it with attention, not brushing it off. It's harmless, I insisted. He knows I'm married. I know he's married. It's just pressure, office politics. I can't exactly snap at him every time he says something a bit off. That's not how you survive in that place. He stared at me for a long time. And the promotion? He asked. Is that part of this pressure too? I hesitated a fraction of a second too long. He mentioned he could advocate for me, I admitted. That he sees my value, that we could talk about it over dinner or something. Matt closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. So he tells you you're wonderful, he said slowly. You tell him he's terrible and then keep talking, and somewhere in between, he offers you advancement over private dinners. He offered to talk, I snapped. That's all. It's not like I agreed to anything. But you didn't say no, he replied. You didn't say, that's inappropriate, let's keep this in the office. You didn't say, I won't discuss my career with you in a setting that looks like a date. You said, he flicked the screen. Sure, if that's what it takes to finally get out of this chair, I'm in. There it was, my own words, printed in neat font, now pressed against my face. It's just playing along, I said weakly. Everyone does it. Men go golfing and make jokes about assistant skirts. People close deals at bars. This is the same thing. It's not cheating. It's strategy. Strategy, he repeated. His voice was so calm it scared me more than if he had shouted. Do you realize, he said, that you are describing exactly how all those stories you complain about start? People strategy themselves into situations they swear they never planned. I folded my arms, defensive. Oh, so this is my fault and his not at all, I snapped. He's the one with power. He's the one crossing lines. I'm just trying to survive in a system that rewards behavior like his and punishes people like me for not playing along. You're not wrong about the system, Matt said. You are very wrong about what you're doing in it. I hated how much that cut through me. I needed this promotion, I insisted. You know that. You know how long I've been stuck. You know how stressed we've been about money. I'm doing what I can. He stared at me, eyes suddenly tired more than angry. Got it, he said. Just that. No argument, no scene. He placed the tablet on the coffee table, screen down, and walked out of the room. Matt. He didn't answer. He went to bed early that night. He lay on his side, facing the wall. I stood in the doorway, waiting for him to start a fight. He never did. He just said, "Turn the light off when you're done," and closed his eyes. That got it. Didn't feel like understanding. It felt like a verdict. I assumed he'd cool down. That's what couples do, right? One person explodes, the other reacts. They sulk, they talk, they cry, they patch. That's how we'd handled every other conflict. But the next morning, he didn't explode. He was up early, showered, dressed in his serious blazer and the tie he usually reserved for interviews or funerals. He made coffee. He put a travel mug on the counter next to a plate of toast. "You should eat," he said without looking at me. I hovered in the doorway. "Are we going to talk?" I asked. "We did," he replied. "I saw what I needed to see." "That's not talking," I snapped. "That's you looking at half a story and deciding you're judge and jury." He took a sip of his coffee. "I have a meeting," he said. "We'll discuss logistics later." "Logistics?" I repeated. "What does that even mean?" He put his mug down. "It means there's what I feel," he said, "and what I'm going to do. Those are two different parts. Right now, I'm handling the second one." Then he picked up a folder from the table. I hadn't noticed it before. Just a simple overstuffed folder with a clip at the top. He put it in his bag. "Matt." "Eat," he said mildly. "You'll need energy." And then he left. I told myself he was being dramatic, that he was probably going to a friend to vent, that he'd, I don't know, print the messages and stare at them somewhere. I did not, for even a second, imagine he was heading toward my office. It was raining lightly when I got off the bus. I walked under the awning, badge in hand, already thinking about the emails I had to send, and, yes, trying to plan how I'd start putting some distance between myself and Victor without setting everything on fire. I stepped through the glass doors, the familiar cool of the lobby hitting my skin, and stopped, because standing in the center of the lobby, near the reception desk, were 4 people who did not belong together in any normal scenario. Matt, our HR manager, the company director, and Claire, Victor's wife, whom I'd seen only in photos before that moment. They were in a tight cluster. Matt held the folder. HR clutched a notebook. The director's face was thundercloud dark. Claire's eyes were already red. A few employees were pretending to linger near the coffee station, eyes flicking back and forth. The receptionist's hands hovered awkwardly over her keyboard. My stomach plunged. Matt saw me first. He didn't look away. He didn't rush over. He just nodded, like I'd arrived right on cue. "Anna," he said. "Good. We can begin." Begin what? My legs carried me forward because there was nowhere else to go. "Good morning," the director said, voice stiff. "We're heading to the conference room. You should join us." "What is going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I think you know," Matt said. I wanted to shout at him. I wanted to snatch the folder out of his hands. Instead, I followed them down the hallway. Every step felt like walking toward some invisible spotlight. We sat around the long table. HR opened a laptop. The director sat at the head, hands folded. Claire sat across from the empty chair that would be Victor's. Matt sat near the door end, between me and the exit. I felt like a defendant waiting for the judge. Victor walked in 30 seconds later, adjusting his tie, phone still in his hand. "Director, He saw Claire. He saw Matt. He saw me. All the color drained from his face. "Claire," he stammered, "what are you—" "Sit," the director said. Victor sat. "What is this?" I asked, my voice small. Matt finally opened the folder. He spoke without raising his voice. I found a message thread between my wife and her direct manager, he said. I made copies. Before I decide what I'm doing in my personal life, I wanted to make sure her workplace decisions aren't happening in a hidden little bubble. He started sliding stacks of paper, one to the director, one to HR, one to Claire, one to Victor, and finally, one to me. I didn't want to look. I looked anyway. Printed screenshots, neat columns of our flirtation in black and white. Victor, you're the most talented woman here. You know that, right? Me, if that's the case, my salary didn't get the memo. Victor, that can be fixed. With the right motivation. Me, careful, you'll get both of us in trouble. Our little jokes lay there like evidence bags. HR's eyes went wide, then narrowed into professional blankness. The director's jaw tightened. Claire's lips trembled. Victor's hand clenched the paper so hard it creased. This is out of context, Victor started. These are just jokes, loosely phrased. We were never, Matt cut in, calm. Just jokes between a married manager and a married subordinate, he said, including late-night messages about helping her career at private dinners. Jokes that never somehow include other colleagues. Jokes that somehow come attached to talk of advancement. He looked at the director. Is this how you run promotions here? He asked. Because if it is, everyone should at least get the memo. The director looked like he wanted to sink through the table. Victor, he said slowly, is this real? Victor swallowed. My messages have been selectively. Oh, we didn't even get to the best parts yet, Claire said suddenly. Her voice cut through the room like glass. She flicked through the pages. So, this is what your late nights at the office were, she asked. You looking at your phone and smiling, at another woman, writing to her that she should have been yours? Victor's head snapped toward her. Claire, I never... Matt turned a few pages. He read out loud, flat. You should have been mine in another life. Silence. If that's your idea of harmless office talk, Matt added, then I'm very curious what you reserve for something serious. I felt sick, not because I thought they were wrong, because they were right, because seeing those words in Matt's hands, in Claire's hands, in the director's hands, was like watching my private rationalizations be dragged out into bright light and evaporate. I never asked for this, I said, my voice shaking. He started it. I just tried to keep things light. I didn't want to cause drama. Anna, Matt said quietly, please don't stand here and pretend you were dragged into this. You leaned in. You used it. You knew exactly what you were doing. You told me yourself you were being smart. The director cleared his throat. We have policies about this, he said to Victor. You've attended the same trainings as everyone else. Managers are explicitly told not to cross this kind of line. It wasn't physical, Victor snapped. Nothing happened. That's not the bar, HR said sharply. The bar is whether you created an environment where advancement is tied to personal attention. She glanced at me. And whether you participated in that, she added. I felt my cheeks burn. I wanted to argue that I had no real power, that my participation was just self-preservation. But what came out instead was something smaller. I just wanted to be considered, I said. Every time I tried to do things the proper way, I was ignored. He was the first person who actually listened when I said I deserved more. Claire laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. He listened because he liked being listened to, she said. Don't flatter yourself. That one stung. The director sighed and leaned back. Regardless of motivation, he said, this is unacceptable. We can't pretend this didn't happen. He looked at HR, who nodded. Effective immediately, he continued. Victor, you are suspended from all leadership duties pending a full investigation. Anna, you are placed on leave while we review your involvement. Leave, I repeated. You're suspending me too? You engaged in these conversations, HR said. You agreed to meet outside of work to discuss advancement. You think I had the same responsibility as him? I demanded. He's the boss. No, HR said. He had more. That's why he's being removed from his role. But you are not an intern. You are not powerless. You made choices. There are consequences. Victor looked stunned. This is being blown out of proportion, he protested. We lost people over much worse with nothing but a warning. A pattern came to light, Matt said. The only difference this time is that someone outside the building had the courage to drag it out. He stood up, folder in hand. Since they want to mix business with charm, he said loud enough for the hallway to hear through the glass wall, they can look for new jobs together. Then he walked out. Through the glass, I saw heads turning. Phones lifted, subtle but not subtle enough. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I sat frozen, surrounded by neat stacks of my own downfall, and watched the career I'd spent 6 years trying to build slide right off the table. They didn't need weeks. By the next day at lunchtime, HR called. Her tone told me what the words would be before she said them. We reviewed the material, she said. Given the content of the messages and the company's exposure, we're terminating your employment effective immediately. I stared at the wall. You're firing me, I said. We're ending your contract with severance according to policy, she corrected. The documentation shows that you engaged in inappropriate communication with your manager regarding advancement and willingly participated in one-on-one discussions outside normal review structures. This undermines the integrity of our promotion system and puts the company at risk. Did you fire him too? I asked. Yes, she said. Victor is no longer employed here. There is a note being added to both of your files for reference checks. A note, a black mark that would follow me around like a shadow. Thank you for your contributions, she added, like this was the end of a pleasant internship. I hung up. A second later, my phone buzzed with a text from Matt. I didn't ruin your career. You did. I just made sure you didn't ruin mine along with it. I frowned. What? I typed back. What do you mean, your career? He replied almost immediately. I resigned this morning. I'm not staying at a place that tolerates this kind of thing until someone's partner embarrasses them into action. So yes, we're both unemployed. Difference is, I can look people in the eye and tell them exactly why. I sat there, staring at the screen. Anger flared, hot and sharp. He quit? Without talking to me. Without a plan. Without even pretending to care what this meant for our mortgage, for our bills, for anything. My first instinct was to fire back. You're unbelievable. You just blew up your job to make a point. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then I stopped, because behind the anger, something else was starting to grow. A quiet, cold awareness that he hadn't blown up anything. He had walked out. I was the one whose mess had lit the fuse. I waited until evening to go to the house. Part of me hoped I'd get a call. That Matt would cool off. That he'd come home early, knock on my sister's door, ask to talk. Nothing. No calls, no messages. Just a silent digital wall where my marriage used to be. By 7, I drove over. The sky was a flat grey, street lamps blinking on one by one. I walked up to our front door, tried my key. It went in, turned halfway, stopped. I tried again. Nothing. I checked the number on the door like some part of my brain was hoping I'd simply gone to the wrong place. Same house, same welcome mat we picked together, same plant in the corner, now slightly wilted. I tried the spare key from my bag. Same problem. My chest tightened. He had changed the lock. There was an envelope taped to the door, my name on the front in his handwriting. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside, a stack of papers, a small velvet ring box, a single handwritten note, the stack, divorce forms, already filled with his information. The only blank spaces were mine. The box, my wedding ring, the note. I told you once I would never ask you to trade your self-respect for money. You decided to trade mine without even asking. I won't share a home with someone who calls this just how things are. You wanted to move up badly enough to blur every line. Consider this a line I won't cross. Hope the promotion was worth it. Matt. I sank down on the step. I wanted to knock until he opened. I wanted to scream that he couldn't just lock me out like a stranger. But the house was dark. His car wasn't in the driveway. He was gone. Neighbors' curtains shifted. I could feel their eyes on me, the way people watch a scene from behind glass, fascinated and relieved that it isn't theirs. My first reaction was pure outrage. He changed the locks. Already. Over messages. Over jokes. Then slower, something else crept in. If he had done what I'd done, if I found messages to a female manager about another life, about outfits, about helping him advance over dinner, what would I have done? Would I have calmly sat him down and said, "Let's be mature adults"? Or would I have seen red? Would I have called it just networking or betrayal? I knew the answer. I just didn't like what it implied about me. On my sister's couch, in the weeks after everything collapsed, I had a lot of time. Too much. Time to reread the messages. Time to replay the conference room scene. Time to dissect every decision that led there. If you think I spent all that time crying and blaming myself, you'd be wrong. I did a lot of that. But I also did something more pathetic. I tried to rewrite the story in my head so I wasn't the main villain. Victor was the one with power. The company was the one with a rotten culture. Matt was the one who humiliated me instead of protecting me. All of that has truth in it. But none of it cancels out the part I'd been avoiding. The part where I opened the door for Victor and left it conveniently ajar. I was the one who answered his messages at midnight. I was the one who joked back when he suggested dinner. I was the one who chose clothes with his comments in mind. I was the one who decided that advancement through charm was distasteful in theory and acceptable in practice. And I was very, very proud of myself for being clever about it, until it stopped being clever and started being public. I told myself everyone did it. "I'm not doing anything that doesn't already happen," I'd mutter. "I'm just not sabotaging myself by acting shocked and offended every 5 seconds." But here's the part that keeps sticking in my throat when I try to swallow my own excuses. It wasn't every 5 seconds. It was every time I had a choice. I could have responded differently. I could have written, "This makes me uncomfortable. Let's keep it about work." I could have refused dinner. I could have gone to HR the first time he pushed too far. I didn't, because that wouldn't have helped me. That's the ugly truth. I didn't flirt because I was helpless. I flirted because I wanted something. I used Victor's attention as currency. And then I got furious when the bank called in the debt. You know how people say news spreads fast? They have no idea. My firing wasn't announced with some official note. It leaked. Did you hear what happened? Are the rumors true? Is it real that HR had to sit them all down together? My work chat filled with messages from numbers I barely recognized. "Hey, I heard something insane. Is it true? If you need to vent, I'm here." Girl, why him of all people? As if I'd wandered around the building with a checklist. Kind, respectful, or CAX, strategic disaster, in a nice tie. A few colleagues were genuinely kind. They told me they were sorry, that they thought HR had been harsh, that everybody knew the director tolerated worse. One messaged, "If they fired everyone who used charm to move up, this place would be empty. You were just the one with the wrong husband." Others were less gentle. One of the younger women I'd trained once sent, "We looked up to you, and you were just playing along like everyone else." That one hurt more than HR's speech. Victor, for his part, vanished. One week he was in the corner office. Next week his nameplate disappeared. His company email bounced back. His internal profile went blank. Then he popped up on a professional networking site with a cheerful banner. "Open to new opportunities." I stared at that for a long time. The comments were full of support. "Any company would be lucky to have you. You're a true leader. Everything happens for a reason." None of them knew why he was really open, or maybe they did and didn't care. Meanwhile, my own applications kept hitting walls. Reason for leaving previous role? I tried different versions, restructuring, ethical disagreement, misalignment. All of them felt like lies that were technically true but useless. Every time a recruiter called, I waited for the question. So, I see you were in the same department for 6 years. What prompted your exit? Sometimes they asked it lightly, sometimes with that tone that said they'd already heard a story from someone. I never quite knew how to answer it. I got fired for letting attention go to my head did not feel like an effective pitch. About 2 months after everything, I saw Victor again. It was by accident. I was at a downtown cafe, laptop open, pretending to work on a resume, while mostly just watching people walk by. He walked in wearing a different company badge on a lanyard, slimmer suit, new bag. He scanned the room, spotted me, froze for half a second, then recovered with that same smooth smile. "Anna," he said, "long time." I considered pretending not to see him. Instead, I took a sip of my coffee and forced my face into neutrality. "Victor." He hesitated, then sat at the table next to mine, angled toward me. "How have you been?" he asked carefully. I laughed once, short and humorless. "How do you think?" He winced. "I heard you left," he said. "I didn't know they'd put you in the same category as me. That wasn't my intention." "Oh, your intentions have always been excellent," I said. "It's your methods that destroy people." He shifted. "I got an offer quickly," he said, like that somehow helped. "They said my track record speaks for itself. Smaller company, but more flexible. Less strict about certain things." Of course they were. People like him always land on their feet. "What about you?" he ventured. "Any leads?" I stared at him. "No," I said. "Apparently being the most talented woman in the room doesn't translate well when HR adds a note to your file." He flinched. "I didn't mean for you to get dragged into this like that," he said. "Your husband—" "My husband revealed exactly what was happening," I snapped. "If you don't like the method, maybe don't hand people material to work with." His jaw tightened. "You were there too," he said sharply. "You're not some innocent bystander." "I know," I said. The simple honesty of it seemed to throw him off. He expected me to protest, to cry, to beg him to share the blame. "I know I played along," I continued. "I know I used your attention for leverage. I know I thought I was being smart and careful until the whole thing blew up in my face." He looked at the table. "I never wanted to actually cross the line," he muttered. "It was just talk." "Talk that cost us both our jobs," I said. "Talk that made your wife cry and my husband change the locks." We sat in silence for a moment. Finally, he exhaled. "You know," he said softly, "if he hadn't walked into that lobby, we might both still be there. You might have your promotion by now." He said it like it was something to be nostalgic about. For a second, I imagined that alternate reality. Me, with manager on my door. Him, still sending messages late at night. Me, still deleting some and saving others. Matt, slowly shrinking into himself as he felt something was wrong but couldn't prove it. Us, rotting quietly instead of burning. I shook the image away. "I used to think that too," I said. "That he destroyed my big chance. Now I'm starting to realize he just refused to let me pretend I was clean when I wasn't." Victor frowned. "So you're grateful?" he asked, like the word tasted strange. I thought about it. "No," I said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever, but I understand." He looked at me like he didn't recognize the person in front of him. Maybe I didn't either. He stood. "Well," he said back to professional tone. "Good luck." "You too," I replied. He walked away, his badge swung at his chest. He would be fine. People like Victor always find new rooms to charm. People like me have to figure out how to live with the fact that we weren't just victims of them. We were their willing accomplices. That's the question everyone asks eventually. My sister, my therapist, some brave soul in my messages who thinks they're original. Was the promotion worth what you lost? Here's the twist. I never even got the promotion. I lost my job, my reputation, my marriage. For a possibility, for hints and promises and messages, for a line in the air that said, soon, and maybe, and we'll see. I traded solid things for smoke. I thought I was making an investment. I was actually just betting everything on a rigged game. Do I think Matt went nuclear? Yes. He could have confronted me alone. He could have gone to HR without involving the director. He did not need to invite Victor's wife to sit across the table and read our messages. He chose maximum exposure. He chose the most public, most efficient way to blow everything up. He chose, in his own way, exactly what I chose: impact over care. He wanted to make it impossible for everyone to pretend nothing was happening. He succeeded. So now he has his line. His, I won't tolerate this story. He lives with the knowledge that when the moment came, he didn't swallow his pride to keep the peace. And I live with the knowledge that before he ever picked up that folder, I had already bent my own lines until they were unrecognizable. I wanted power. Power over my career. Power over how men in that office saw me. Power over my own sense of being overlooked. So I used the only lever I felt I had left. Charm. I called it harmless. Strategic, smart, until it wasn't, until someone I loved more than any job walked into a lobby full of people and held up a mirror. You want to know what really haunts me? It's not the firing, it's not even the divorce papers. It's one quiet sentence he sent me late at night, right before blocking my number for good. I'd written him another long, desperate text, pages of apology and explanation and promise. He answered with 4 lines. You used charm like a tool and called it survival. I used proof like a tool and called it truth. We both chose force over conversation. The difference is, I didn't start from a lie. I stared at that message until the screen blurred, because that was the moment I realized something I'd been fighting from the beginning. I hadn't just made a mistake. I'd built a whole little world out of half-truths and pressure and rationalizations. And when he knocked it down, I blamed him for the dust. So no, the promotion wasn't worth it. The irony is, I never even held it in my hands. All I held were the pieces after the crash. A folder, a stack of printed messages, a velvet box with a ring I don't wear anymore, and a story people now tell in one sentence. She flirted with her boss to get a promotion, and her husband made them both jobless. They never add the part where I sat there deleting messages and calling it strategy. They never add the part where I told myself I was just doing what everyone else did. They never add the part where, when the moment came to choose between clean and clever, I chose clever every single time. You can still hate me after hearing all this. You probably should. That's the whole point of these stories, right? To make you feel something between outrage and satisfaction. All I wanted was to be seen. I just never imagined that, in the end, I'd be seen this clearly.